Tempest Trials Plus, a Waltz Unending is here to accompany our 2020 bridal banner. If you score the maximum 50,000 points, you can earn up to 42 orbs, 11,000 feathers, and 80 sacred coins. You can get 50 ephemerid, 5 divine codes, and 1 fire blessing to match legendary Edelgard from last month. For sacred seals, we have even speed wave and speed and defense bond, 2 pretty decent skills. As for our reward unit, this time it's Groom Hinata. You can earn a 4-star and 5-star copy. We'll talk more about him in just a bit, but first let's discuss our new sacred seals. For even speed wave 3, at the start of even number turns, grants plus 6 speed to unit and adjacent allies for 1 turn. This is a good self-buffing ability for any units looking for extra speed, and 6 speed can go a long way. Even speed wave can be paired with odd speed wave in the C slot if you want continuous plus 6 speed buffs, and it's not a terrible idea if you really want the extra speed and you are passing it along to teammates as well. Odd speed wave can be gotten from Halloween Rolf, who is a heroic girl unit if you really want to give that set a go. For record keeping purposes, even speed wave is the last even wave buff turned into a sacred seal. We've actually had no odd wave seals yet, so hopefully this means we'll start rolling those out in the future. Our next sacred seal is Speed and Defense Bond 3. If unit is adjacent to any ally, grants plus 5 speed and defense during combat. This skill is actually our last bond sacred seal, so we're finishing 2 sets of skills today. Speed and Defense Bond is nice for fast physical damage brawlers, and you can stack it with other bond skills in the A slot as well. Bonds do provide quite a lot of stats, but do require that teammate adjacency, so they work better on defensive units who are baiting enemies in. Flyers are decent bond skill users thanks to all their crazy mobility skills, and Bridal Obero from the banner has a focus on speed and defense, so she could make use of it as well. Obero also actually would like even speed wave since her weapon requires a stat buff to activate. Overall, a decent set of sacred seals, both are worth upgrading if you like them, but they aren't must-use skills if you don't care about speed.
I'm Hinata of Hoshido. See something funny? Oh, laugh it up!
Moving on to Groom Hinata, he's gonna be the Axe Infantry counterpart to Bridal Obero, kinda. For his stats, Hinata has 47 HP, 37 attack, 27 speed, 40 defense, and 21 resistance. Another super high defense infantry unit, Hinata has the second highest base defense for any Axe Infantry unit, only behind Rinka, so that's very impressive. He also has a pretty high 37 base attack and really high 47 base HP. If you like tanky high defense units, Hinata has you covered. Now, unlike Bridal Obero, Hinata's speed stat isn't that high, it's definitely below average, and he doesn't sacrifice it completely, which may be good or bad, depending on how you want to build him. Now, because of this, Hinata puts some extra points into resistance, and with 21 res isn't outstanding by any means, it's a better starting point if you wanted him to be a mixed tank. When he's starting 40 defense, Hinata does have the freedom to spec into extra res with his skills, and you can go down that route if you so please. Groom Hinata has a similar vibe to Spring Barcher from a few months back, except he's an axe unit instead. For his weapon, Hinata has the Huge Fan Plus. It's a 14-might inheritable axe that has the same effect as Bridal Obero's Pledged Blade. If a bonus is active on unit, grants attack and defense plus 4 and special cooldown charge plus 1 per foe's attack. As a reminder, a bonus in brackets is either a stat field buff or a positive status effect such as a movement buff. So as mentioned in my last video, this is a pretty dang good effect for an inheritable weapon. These weapons are similar to Rinka's club, but their biggest weakness is requiring a bonus to be active. If you can solve that issue by always bringing a buffer or someone who has a status effect, then you can get a nice attack and defense boost, plus you get extra special cooldown charges, which is always really strong. Huge Fan Plus will be a straight improvement over Summer Ilga's Shoreline Rake Plus, so if you like that weapon, then Huge Fan is a good pickup. Now for Groom Hinata, he can use this weapon really well. Attack and defense are some of his best stats, so adding more to that is totally great. With extra special charging, Hinata can instantly counterattack with a 2 cooldown special, and he doesn't necessarily need to run cooldown reduction skills to charge up stronger specials like Aether. Bring a stat buffer or someone like Legendary Azura or Annette for their movement status buffs. You can also use units with ground orders, which will grant a buff, so that will also proc Huge Fan's ability. Now returning to Hinata's base kit, he does come with reciprocal aid. Our man does have a ton of base HP to share with his teammates, but if you want Hinata to tank tons of damage, then he'll probably want to stay healthy. His A skill is Attack and Defense Bond, which grants plus 5 attack and defense when adjacent to any ally. I mean, just from his base kit alone, Hinata can get plus 5 attack and defense from the Bond skill, plus 4 attack and defense from Huge Fan Plus, and you can refine that weapon for another plus 4 defense on top. This dude hits over 50 defense with just 2 skills, so definitely don't underestimate everyone's favorite Fury Master. Now to round out the kit, Hinata has Close Guard 3. This grants all allies within 2 spaces, plus 4 defense and res during combat against any melee foes, a supportive C skill that can work on any unit, and we do have the Close Guard Sacred Seal if you want to help the team duke it out with melee enemies. Overall, besides reciprocal aid, Hinata has some good skills. We aren't giving anything super crazy, but we can definitely use what's on hand. If you wish to give Hinata a boost for the first merge, he gets plus 1 HP and plus 1 defense. The neutral nature would then add plus 1 HP, attack, and defense, which brings our Groom up to 49 HP, 38 attack, and 42 defense just with a plus 1 merge. The neutral bonus gives Hinata 3 stat points in his best strengths, so it's a decent boost. Regarding free reward unit comparisons for Axe Infantry units, we actually have a nice scale from year 1 to year 4. We start off with Legion, then in year 2 we got Linus, last year was Summer Ilger, and now it's Groom Hinata. So if we stick to the 1 a year pattern, we're done with Axe Infantry reward units. Compared to Legion, Hinata has an additional 15 extra stat points to put to use, and he ends up with the highest HP and highest defense. In fact, we can see that our past 3 Axe units are all somewhat similar with good attack and speed stats. Hinata is the only one with a monstrous base defense stat, and he has good HP and attack as well, while sacrificing speed. As mentioned, Huge Fan is just a straight up upgrade over Ilger's Shoreline Rake, but Linus got super lucky since he came with Basilicos, which already had a refine thanks to Raven, one of the odder cases for a heroic girl unit, and Linus is a fun unit who can hit some incredibly high attack and speed values with his life and death refine. From stats alone, Groom Hinata is rather different than our other free options, but what about some summonable ones? I didn't pull up all the low rarity Axe Infantry units from launch, but these are our 3 demoted ones from the past years. Echidna, Ross, and Liber are all rather good merge projects, and they aren't absolutely min-max, which leaves an incredible amount of build variety for each of them. Once again though, we now can see that no one can match Hinata's raw defense stat, even with defense boons included. I would say Hinata is closest to Ross, who also has high HP and attack, but Ross puts points into speed and resistance over straight defense. If you want a purely high damage axe unit, then you can't beat Ross, who can get an attack super boon. If you want a physical damage tank, then Groom Hinata does stand his ground, even against some of the most popular axe units available. He's very costly to plus 10 as a Tempest Trials reward unit if you want to go for max investment, but you don't actually have to do too much to hit some nasty high defense numbers. For builds, Hinata is another one of those slower tanks that really just needs quick riposte for killing power. It's boring, but hey, it works, and our man can stack a stupid amount of defense very easily. Refine the Huge Fan Plus with extra defense, proc its ability, and then activate attack and defense bond to surpass 50 defense. We can even tack on the attack and defense bond Sacred Seal, and at this point we're also reaching crazy high attack values too. Assuming you can get Huge Fan to proc its ability, Hinata can take a hit, then counter with a 2 cooldown special. You have Moonbow, Glimmer, or Noontime, and all are great with quick riposte because if Hinata gets hit twice, he can proc these specials again. Now unfortunately, if you want to run Bonfire Ignis for big damage, you pretty much have to run Quick Riposte. For units like Rinka or Wayne, those guys can retaliate with 3 cooldown specials because they accelerate special triggers. You can replicate this with Quick Impulse, and that might be fine for farming the Tempest Trials, but it will only work once and you're sacrificing extra stats in the Seal slot. Now for some alternative skills, you can go at a stance skill in the A slot or Sacred Seal slot if you don't like the bond skills. Braze attack and defense would also be fun. If you want to prevent specials, you can run Guard with Quick Riposte, and if you want to tackle multiple enemies, Attack Smoke is always a good tank skill. Since Huge Fan is dependent on bonuses to work, you may also want to get a self-buffing skill to not fully rely on teammates. Hinata can run even or odd defense wave buffs, plus you can also run one of each to get a buff every turn guaranteed. A good buffing B skill is the Link buffs, and attack and defense Link is on Mordecai, who got demoted this year. Use it with swap or reposition, and Hinata can stack his attack and defense buffs to greater heights. Now, if you want to spend some premium fodder on Hinata, there are a lot of fun options. If you're not going to worry about resistance, you can always run Distant Foil for the extra attack and defense boost, plus ability to counter bows and daggers. Low attack and defense is just annoying and improves Hinata's tanking potential. Then you got the harder to get self-buffing skills like attack and defense Oath, the joint hone buffs, or even the rouse buffs. If you don't really like Huge Fan, Hinata can also make good use of the rear guard axe or the guard axe / hack-o'-lantern axe. Rear guard adds plus 7 defense on the enemy phase, and if you refine it with extra defense, well, Hinata already surpasses 50 defense with just his weapon alone. There are some neat combos we can put together to get Hinata both guard and cooldown reduction. For example, the Huge Fan plus a tier 3 dual stand skill offers both abilities. You can also run the guard axe with steady breath. I'll also throw in a mention for Heavy Blade, which does work with the Huge Fan since it grants special cooldown charges when Hinata is the one attacking. If you want kill pressure for any of these builds, you probably need Quick Riposte somewhere. Otherwise, here are some other options. In the B slot, Mystic Boost for HP recovery after every fight, or Sudden Panic to make use of Hinata's great base HP stat. You can also run Panic Ploy either as a C skill or Sacred Seal. Going back to the idea of running Quick Pulse to get the instant Bonfire counterattack, you could instead use Times Pulse. This would put Bonfire in a 2 cooldown every player phase, but obviously Hinata can only abuse the interaction once before having to wait for the next player phase. You can also just run a Slang Axe with Steady Breath to avoid all this, but if you run the Huge Fan, you have that A slot open for fun stuff like Distant Counter. Overall, not the best, not the worst Tempest Trials rewards. We got some speed-based Sacred Seals, and we finished Bonds and finished Even Wave buffs, so hopefully we'll see some new skills next month. For Groom Hinata, he does surprisingly carve a niche for himself as a really high defense Axe Infantry unit. Not many low rarity or reward Axe units come close to his crazy high 40 base defense, and it's pretty easy to stack more defense just with his base kit. As for Huge Fan Plus, it should be an interesting weapon since cooldown reduction is so valuable. I think it's strong, but it does have drawbacks. For example, Panic should shut down any field buffs you may be using, and a lot of units are running lull skills to nullify certain stat buffs. If you can get a positive status effect, then those are much safer for activating its effect. For example, an army unit like the Flame Emperor could use Armor March to proc Huge Fan's bonuses, and that's a lot safer than depending on field buffs only. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. Let me know if you have any plans for these Sacred Seals or Groom Hinata. Maybe you'll want to steal his fan for some other units. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys soon.